Hello, ticking along here. This is a bit of a different video. I don't usually put out any trigger warnings or anything like that, but for this video, I am going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to be speaking about self-harm, suicide, and other things in that realm of mental health, depression, on all of that. So I wanted to go ahead and preface this video with that. If any of that's going to be a problem, um, then you may want to click away. I'm also going to be talking about eating disorders and the like. So anything like that, if you don't want to see anything like that, go ahead and click off. But since I've gone through and done that, let me get into it. Um, so, uh, what kind of preempted this video was I went to go write in my journal, and I can't find it, which is a bummer. So, because I can't find it, I want to go ahead and make a video, kind of containing all of the information I can in that, so that if I do lose the paper copy with, I guess, even more in-depth views of it, I want to be sure I have at least something to go off of. I do have my original journal, which I put a Converse tag on. Yeah, so not necessarily an easy video because there's a lot of stuff in that I don't necessarily want to divulge. Um, but I think it's important that people are aware of what other people go through, and we need to be more willing to talk about it. I'm not sure how long this video is going to be, and I may end up splitting it into multiple parts. Okay, so I'm going to start out with as far back as I can remember. I'm going to try to go through pretty much my whole, I don't know, my life within reason of what is important. So, I can get the camera set up. There. It's a bit better. So, what, let me see, where can I start? So the best place I guess I can start is when I noticed something was off. So I think it was probably second grade-ish age where I noticed that there's something different, that I'm not as normal as everyone else. And there really is no normal, everyone's different. But there was something off about me and about my experience, and I wasn't sure what that was. Um, and you know, so that went on for a while, and then I got to probably fourth grade, and that was like a big time when I was starting to get into feeling, I don't know, I guess depressed or whatever. I don't have anything written down from that time, so I'm not sure exactly, but that's when I kind of remember starting to realize, like, I felt alone, I guess. And not that I felt like I was an outcast, but I felt alien in a way. And, like, I did, like, I hung out with people and everything, but I didn't feel like I fit. Which is kind of weird. I don't know. I had plenty of friends. It's just, I don't know, just didn't feel like I clicked like other people did. Um, and then, you know, time went on. I started being homeschooled in fifth grade, and so through my middle school ages, I was being homeschooled, and that's when, a lot of kids have those, you're going through puberty and everything else, so, kind of things, you start becoming your own person, or more of your own person. Uh, and so, uh, in that, I was just, uh, I think that's, so I think my tics and stuff really started back in more like third grade, which would make more sense for when you would normally see the onset, but it wasn't anything that I noticed until I was like nine. Well, it wasn't anything that I noticed until I was like 17. But I really, looking back, see that there were things going on at that time. And so I go through my middle school ages, and I felt so alone, and I really just wanted I saw other people with their, have a boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, and I felt left out. Like this is something I need, and I, I just couldn't handle, or I felt like I couldn't handle being alone. And it wasn't necessarily that I wanted someone, but I also wanted to be there for someone else. And I prayed and prayed about it, and just it was I guess that was like the main issue that I had, was just being alone. And then what was it? I and during, well, I was, yeah, like sixth grade ish, sixth and seventh grade. I was just, I don't know. I felt this unease, this feeling like I was being caged in, and partially I do think that was like the suppression of the tics and Tourette's and stuff. But I just didn't know it, and have I would say things and have things pop into my mind that were, kind of like suicidal, but like I didn't, I didn't know if that was necessarily me thinking it, and then but like, if I'm thinking it, I'm thinking it, so like I must believe it, and that's not true. You can, think things and not believe them. You can say things. Like you can naturally, things can come out with Tourette's, especially things can come out that you don't believe, that aren't you, and they're just words. They're just sounds. Fuck it. But and it's just ridiculous. I didn't. I wish I would have known at the time, but what can you do? Bit. Fuck. And so I went through these times, and I just felt so anguished. And at times suicidal. Constantly having thoughts of, getting hit by a car or jumping off of, a tall building or something like that. And often requesting death. But, it wasn't that I was, it wasn't that I was so sad with life. It wasn't that I thought life was so awful. That's what I was looking for. It wasn't that I felt like life was so awful, but it was that I don't know. It just had that feeling in me, like this anguish, this buildup. Again, I think that it was the tics being suppressed. Oof. Um, but like I would have, I would just, and I don't know, I would be so mad or upset that I felt that way because I had no right to feel sad and upset. And looking back, or I felt like I had no right. I knew that that everyone has a right to be upset. Just because someone's in a worse situation than you doesn't mean that you don't have the right to be upset. You can be upset. It's fine. As long as you're not upset with, in the wrong way. Like if you wrong somebody and then you're upset about it, like if you're, alright, as long as you're not wrong and being upset, then you can be upset. Like you can be upset that you're not happy with life. That's okay. But it just was what it was, and so I went on constantly having these thoughts. Didn't tell anybody. Um, but I went on and just continued through it, lived as best I could. And I was, I still had friends, I still had this and that and everything else, but it just felt so wrong. And then I would go through and be hanging out with friends, but feel this feeling like, I don't know, like I was an outsider, like I was more of an observer. And so I'd feel like I was an observer, like I was an outsider, like I was somebody who was just there to observe. And I kind of took on that role in a way. I don't know, I tried to include myself as best I could because that's important for these relationships. But you can't always include yourself all the time and make yourself do that because I don't know. But I went through all of that, feeling, suicidal, having suicidal thoughts, and then, uh, just feeling this anguish, and then in the summer of 8th grade, yeah, summer, no, yeah, summer after 8th grade, um, I met this girl and we started dating, and, everything felt good, everything was great, for a while, several months, several months, and then over time, I just began to feel that anguish again. I felt like everything was going great, but then why do I still feel bad? Like this is not okay. And I felt bad for feeling bad, and it was rough. But still, on the outside was fine, and then of course you start to have all these pressures from people expecting you to, as you're going into high school, expecting you to start knowing what you're going to do with your life, and I just don't care. I don't. Give me a job and I'll do it. Woof. But like I didn't have any desire to do anything. I'll work. Just work. I don't care. give me something to do and I'll do it. Um, and then like they expected. Oh, I felt like I a lot was expected of me, and I felt like I couldn't achieve it. Like I didn't think that I had um, the ability to go through and achieve what they were wanting me to do. Um, so but on the outside, I was portraying myself as this, super smart, um, person who could go through and be this, you know, very successful person or whatever. And I just, I felt like it was a fraud. I felt like I was a fraud in that I just, I was portraying more than I was. Anytime someone would be like, "Oh, so what are you, planning for, whatever, this and that," and I hated that question. Just hated it. So I'm like, I didn't want to say I don't care because that's not what they want you to say. They want you to say something, and I just don't care. I just want a job, and I'll do it. I'll do it as best I can. I'll do it to the best of my ability. Just know I'll do it. Oh well. So started dating this girl. Was going well, and then I can't remember. I can't remember much. But or how I first discovered this, but I found out that she was self-harming and cutting, and so she would come to me and after the fact, and I'm like, I probably was putting too much pressure on her, but I didn't know. Uh, but I would always, I would tell her, please come to me before you feel like, when you feel like doing this to yourself, come to me first and we'll talk about it. She, of course, never did, and when you have a lot of pressure on you, I get it. But yeah, so that was my kind of introduction. The best of my knowledge, that was where I first learned about self-harm and cutting yourself and stuff like that. And so it was a bit of a shock. But I kind of went with it. I don't remember ever making her promise not to ever do it again or anything like that, but to come to me and we'll talk about it, about what you're going through and stuff like that. And it was hard seeing her do that to herself. But then I think I was talking to my brother about something. We were just driving in the car, and he said, brought up something about, I think, okay, so I think he had a friend who attempted suicide. And so in that conversation that somehow came up with, I just said, well, yeah, like, everyone at some point has thoughts of killing themselves. And he said no. And I'm like, I figured that it was a normal thought, that just everybody has this thought. To some extent or the other, just thoughts of driving, like thoughts of, whatever, jumping in front of a car or getting into a car accident or something. Like, I guess those are the same thing. But jumping off of a building or something, it's just thoughts. They are what they are. But he said no, and I'm like, okay. And then he's like, he said, come to asking me like if I was thinking about suicide, and I'm like, well, not really. which I really wasn't. I wasn't going to um, at the time. I can't remember when. Can't remember when it was that, or what position I was at the time. But I told him I wasn't, and so and he brought up self harm and saying that those who actually want to commit suicide self harm first, like always, kind of a thing. And I'm like, I don't think that that's true. Like that's ridiculous. um, and so I'm like that's it's dumb, but I kept my thoughts to myself. Um, and then somehow through that conversation and my girlfriend at the time self-harming, I tried it, and I'd used a razor blade, like an X-Acto knife type razor blade, to cut my arms, and nothing really more than cat scratches, but I don't have any scars from it now, but enough to, I guess part of me was wanting to know why people did it. What's it like? Why would someone want to do this? And the other part of me wanted to validate my thoughts. Like, really? I'm only going to be believed for suicidal thoughts if I self-harm? Okay. Um, and so I tried it, and within, like, it's within a week, not even, doing anything severe or anything like that, I became addicted, and I wasn't able to stop. And so I created this journal. I set myself rules, and it became an ordeal. I was already wearing just these button-down shirts, a long sleeve, so it was covered there. But yeah, it was a thing. Uh, and yeah, so like I tried to stop. Within a week, I was already hooked. And so there I was. And I was using it somewhat as a punishment, somewhat of a release, and it started due to a curiosity of why, and a need or a want or a desire for validation. And part of me was like, am I doing this for attention, for validation, for whatever? And part of me was like, no, I'm not. I don't want anyone to know. And then part of me was like, but I think it was. I think it kind of was for validation, but I did want to know why. I think that was more of the reasoning. Like, I really wanted to know, why do people do this? So I'll try it. And yeah, so for those who wonder why, part of it is validation. Part of it is, um, on occasion, a cry for help. On occasion, a want to transfer the pain that's on the inside to pain that's visible on the outside. Another part of it is punishing yourself. For me, it was for feeling bad. And another part of it is the release of the endorphins you get from it. And it all just works together. And I was stuck in that addiction of cutting for, I don't know, 15 to 18, no, 17, like 3 years or so. And I tried a whole bunch of things to stop, and I tried to work it around in my head to give me a reason not to, enough of a reason not to. And it came back to, it's my body, it's not hurting me. I mean, it is, but it's not. It's these, what I do is dangerous. And so I don't know why I can't just, continue to do this. And so eventually I got to the point where I'm like, you know what? If, as a Christian, I cannot, it's not my body. As a Christian, it's not my desire that matters. I was doing all these other things to align myself with God, but yet still denying Him in this area. And so I had to, that's what finally clicked to make me stop. And I went through and on several occasions would go through and write instead of cutting myself, would go through and write with, I got a fountain pen and blood red ink to write cuts into my journals. And that helped. It really did. To see it, to see the blood red ink on the page flowing out, helped. But it took a while. And it was really that thing that clicked in my brain, that got me to stop. So that was definitely an ordeal, a problem, and it really, I was in control of it the whole time, mostly. I mean, in control, as much as you can be with any addiction. But like, I had rules. I'm a rule guy. I had rules and I stuck to them. I would only cut one time a day, or one cut a day, and only 3 cuts on my arm at a time. If they hadn't healed up yet, can't do it. And that kept me from getting too far in. But then there was one time that I didn't do that. Well, I did start drawing words on my legs. So, guess that doesn't go within the rules. that was kind of, I was trying to see how that went. What an idiot. But yeah, what I did have one time where I had 9 cuts at a time in one sitting. I just lost it. But I do think that all this anguish and pain was from this suppression of tics that I didn't know were a thing. Because even at the time, looking back, I did have an F word tic that, like, I didn't realize it was a tic at the time, but I'd be like, why did I just say that? And just be at weird times. I'm like, it's weird. Why do I keep saying that? I need to stop cussing. But it wasn't that. It was definitely a tic. So there's kind of my self-harm story. And then with suicide, I did, my problem, the reason I didn't continue through with it, was the risk of it not going through. And like, I looked up the statistics on there was, I don't know how I found it, but I found a Google sheet of the pain level of deaths tied to the potential of it happening. So like, how likely are you to die in this situation, and how painful is this situation? So you could see which one had the highest pain level, which one had the lowest pain level, which one had the highest risk and the lowest risk. And there was one that had a relatively low pain score and a relatively high chance of dying, but it wasn't 100%. And my problem is, what would happen to my life if I failed? I mean, people would be watching me like a hawk. People would wonder what's wrong with me. People would be concerned. And I did not want that. I don't want to be looked at in that way. I don't want to be constantly monitored. That would be painful and would just drive me crazy. Like, I don't want that. And so that was the reason why I didn't continue through with it, although I multiple times went through and made a plan. Not a very detailed plan as far as setting a date or anything like that, but like, if I were to do it, how would I do it? And I could think of some ways. But again, the risk of it not working, don't want that happening. And then, there was also, the problem of, as a Christian, do I have the right to take my own life? And I don't think I do. So, there's, kind of my story on suicidal ideation and self-harm. And I'll go ahead and take a break here and post a second video on when my Tourette's started and how that went. Thank you for watching. I would appreciate any comments that you have, any questions, anything like that. I will definitely reply to them, possibly with a video if it needs to. If not, I'll just reply to them with text. But thank you for watching. You guys are awesome.